Hi stamping friends, it's Terry Gaines. In this video, I'm going to share a fun fold card. To start, I'm going to create the decorative image for the fun fold card, and I'm going to use the Poinsettia dies, which are in Stampin' Up's 2021-2022 annual catalog. It coordinates with a stamp set. You can stamp the images and cut them out with the dies, or you can use some dies that will cut out an image for the poinsettias, along with a second die, which will make a beautiful embossed imprint for the images. And they are two dies. I actually put mine together with painter's tape. I did that a long time ago. It holds up well, and it allows you to reuse them without having to line up the dies. So all three of the dies for the petals have an insert that will emboss those details onto the image. I'm going to be cutting them out on the red velvet paper, which comes 12 by 12. I cut it down to 6 by 12. So it will run through my die cutting machine, and to save some video time, I have already done that, and you can see that beautiful embossed image that the second die leaves on those petals. And that is also true for the two dies for the leaves, and I cut those out of regular cardstock, and the color I used is Evening Evergreen, which is one of the in colors. So I got that prep work already done. So for the assembly of this, what I'm going to do is put these together with dimensionals. I am going to use the standard regular size dimensional on the largest of the dies for the petals, the cutout, and then I'm going to take the medium size and offset that so it goes right between those openings. Then I'm going to use a mini dimensional for this. Now this is going to add thickness to my card. It might cause it to go into the next postal rate for sending them, but you could always use mini glue dots or another type of adhesive to adhere those. I'm going to put some metallic pearls in the center. You do have the option for a couple different dies that you could use, but I'm going to use these metallic pearls. You get gold and silver in the packet, and I'm going to use the gold ones. And sometimes in shipment your little pearls get moved around on the packaging, but they still work. You just need to pick them up. Take your pick little putty works really well to do that. I like using several of them on my centers. I put one right in the middle, and then I surround it with 6 additional, and I believe you get like 121 of these in each color, so 242 metallic pearls. And by doing that, I just love how that looks. For the leaves, what I'm going to do is put these in the back, and I'm going to attach them with dimensionals. And I already know that the surface that I'm going to attach this with or onto is going to allow me to put dimensionals on majority of the back of this. But for the time being, I'm just going to attach them with dimensionals and prep the piece that they are going to be attached to. So for the fun fold, this is going to be the cardstock for the front panel, 2.5 by 5 1/4. That's the size of this real red piece, 2.5 by 5 1/4. For this fun fold card, you can just use a plain piece. You can stamp it, you can put designer series paper on it, you can texturize it. I actually trimmed basic white slightly smaller, and I texturized it with one of the 2 folders that come in the wintry 3D folder set, which is in the annual catalog. It's got some snowflakes and some pine boughs. So I've already texturized that with my die cutting machine, and I'm going to adhere this to this real red cardstock. As I mentioned, this panel would be 2.5 by 5 1/4, and you can layer it with as many layers as you would like when you duplicate this card. So I have this attached to it, and as I mentioned, I already knew that I have plenty of surface on here. It's not going to overlap too much, so I'm going to turn this over and add a few more dimensionals to allow these to adhere well. I by overlapping onto the leaves, I have sufficient that I don't need to add additional adhesive. The Take Your Pick tool works great to get the backings off. And let me just remove those. And as I mentioned, this is the decorative panel. So I'm going to attach it like so. Then I'm going to take some of the ribbon. This is the Real Red Sheer ribbon. Wrap it around this panel and tie a bow. And any of these fun fold cards that I share, you can use your favorite decorative image on them. And this card can be used for many different occasions, or you can change it up and use it for any occasion. That's the beauty of creating projects. Change the color, change the stamps, and use the idea for any of the different occasions. So I've tied my ribbon around here into a bow, and I'm going to put a little tag down on the side or underneath it. I've used the stamp sentiment that comes with the stamp set that coordinates with this. I use the tailored made tag dies to cut that out. And what I'm going to do is just put some adhesive on the back of that and tuck it underneath as if it was underneath that bow, and just have it right like that. So this panel is already ready to be assembled. So let's start our assembly. Our main cardstock, or our cardstock base, is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm using the Evening Evergreen cardstock. And what you want to do is take designer series paper, texturized cardstock, stamped cardstock, whatever you want to use for your coordinating colors. And I've got some designer series paper, which is in the annual catalog. And I'm going to put you need 2 strips, 1 inch by 5 1/4, and you're going to need to adhere those when you duplicate this card on both sides of this card base panel. So use your regular adhesive, and I'm going to put my adhesive on here. Watch for equal spacing on the top, bottom, and the one side, and place that down. Put adhesive on the other strip, and as I mentioned, this can be multiple different things. It can be paper, your designer series paper, or cardstock. Now the next piece we want to do is going to be the main layer. It is 7 1/4 by 5 1/2. We need to score this, so I'm going to bring the Simply Scoring tool in. This needs to be scored at 1 3/8, 2 1/2, 4 3/4, and 5 7/8. Then what we need to do is fold on the score lines. The 2 outside score lines are going to be mountain folds, so they're going to fold up. The 2 next to, or the middle 2, would be valley folds, so they're going to fold down. So mountain, valley, valley, mountain. Then what we need to do is take a bone folder and crease those so we can get those score lines or creases nice and flush. Then this is going to be the front. On the inside is where we would stamp our cardstock, and I forgot to cut a piece for that. But envision you have your white cardstock that you would stamp, or you would cut at 2 by 5 1/4 and place that in here. This would be for your inside sentiment. On the back side is where it gets attached to this postcard or this card base. So you're going to turn it over, put adhesive on the back, just on this panel here. I like using the edge of my Simply Scoring tool or my Stamparatus to help me make this flush. So I have the base up to the edge. I'm going to put this edge up to the base, lifting it up so the adhesive does not touch the cardstock until I feel I have it in the right place, and then drop it. That helps me get even placement here. This should line up if it's cut square, and you can always trim that piece. So I'm going to move this out of the way right now, and we're done with the Simply Scoring tool. So now this panel is going to be attached to the left panel here. just to that panel and not to this panel. My tip for doing that is turn this over, apply adhesive just on this edge, and then on this panel apply adhesive on this side, but not all the way to the top and not all the way to the bottom. We don't want exposed adhesive. And then you're going to line this up so it is centered here. And that is your fun fold card. It will lay flat into your card. And then when you stand it on a mantle or a desk, this opens up a little bit to add a little bit decorative edge. And just envision, and here's another sample with different designer series paper. That's where your inside sentiment is. I forgot to cut that. This is very much the same card with different designer series paper. I do have a couple more samples to share with you. One is using the Ever Eden Designer Series paper, which is available November 2nd through January 3rd. But note, it is an exclusive product only available while supplies last. It is a beautiful 12 by 12 paper with a gold design on one side, and then it's double-sided. You get 2 sheets each of this paper. So I use that for the paper on this sample. This one is with the Meadow Dies in the annual catalog, and using the time-worn typed folder. I used adhesive sheets on the back of the gold foil paper. That is the adhesive sheets that are 6 by 12. I placed that behind the gold foil before I cut the die out, so that made it easy to adhere that. I have another card with using the Harvest Meadow Dies in the mini catalog, and this is using Fairy Vanilla. And just a couple tips for that. For this die on the back of the cardstock, I just put my adhesive sheet in the strip, and then I cut them out. And then what that means is the adhesive sheet is just back here, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be adhered all the way down. But once I took that backing off, then I brought these bottom branches together, stems together, to make it look like a little bouquet as it all came together. This flower is cut out with the foam adhesive sheets. These are in the annual catalog. You put your cardstock, this adhesive backing pulls off. One side you adhere cardstock, then you take your die, place it on here, run it through your die cutting machine. You can get 3 of them per sheet, and then you have some bonus pieces to reuse. What I did to color those in is I used the Stampin' Up! Blends. So I used bronze for the top, the dark daffodil for the petals, the dark old olive for the rest, and then to color the sides in, my tip with the blender pens is you don't need to push hard. It's just a light touch will color them in, and on the sides I just placed down the blender pen so it would soak into that side. Don't want to color it in with the tip because you're going to start wearing down the tip. Just let it soak in on the sides, and you can color in the edges, and that just adds that pretty dimension to that card. So I hope you enjoyed this fun fold card. As I mentioned, you can change up the stamps, you can change up the cardstock colors, and make some beautiful fun fold cards. Happy creating!